Today's pose is downward facing dog, which is, of course, super common. I think most people who don't do yoga have heard of this pose or seen it or both. So let's just dive right in. For downward facing dog, there's several ways to enter it, but a good way if you're really working on the proper form and technique is to start in tabletop. So in tabletop pose, your shoulders are directly over your wrists and your palms are on the floor, and you want your second fingers or your ring or middle finger, sorry, you want your middle fingers in parallel, and your hips will be right over your knees, and your knees are hip width apart. So for downward facing dog, you actually will walk your hands about one handprint forward from there. So you start in table, but you walk your hands about a handprint forward. You tuck your toes under. And with downward facing dog, there's several things happening here, but one of the main things that you're doing is stretching out your spine. So I like to set that up. So whenever I tuck my toes under, you can send your hips back to your heels, and you already should start to feel a stretch in the spine. And then from here, while your spine is nice and long and you're kind of focusing on that, then you can start to straighten your legs. So as you straighten your legs, you keep your belly as close to your thighs as you can. And then you just start to straighten as much as you can your legs. And your heels may or may not touch the floor. Mine do because, well, my calves and my hamstrings are pretty loose and open. But your heels might be off the floor, and that's okay. Remember, you do get a hamstring stretch from this and a stretch in the back of your legs, but the main thing is stretching out your spine. So with downward facing dog, you don't want to be looking forward. You don't want to be holding your head up. You actually just let your head drop, and you can look between your shins or between your knees. And the last little cue that I will give you is to make sure that your shoulders and your arms are in a good position. If you look forward to the front of your mat and you bend your elbows out, so you see my elbows are bending out, and then as you straighten your elbows, you wrap your elbows down and towards the floor. This rotates the shoulder blades down and out away from the spine, and that's the position that you want the shoulders to be in. And so this is your downward facing dog. And let's talk about some modifications or limitations. First modification is if your hamstrings or your calves are very, very tight, well, that's no problem. You just keep your knees bent as much as you need to, and you keep your heels off the floor and you work towards straightening them. But you can just, you can be like this and you get a great, great stretch for your spine, and you still get some strengthening in the shoulders, and as well as a little stretch in the shoulders. So that is modification for if your hamstrings are really tight. Let's say your shoulders are very, very tight. Well, you don't want your hands to be shoulder width apart. You can walk them wider. You can grab the sides of your mat. Instead of having your ring fingers parallel, you can actually turn them out slightly. And this would be kind of the same action as if you're to grab the side of your mat, but you just have your hands open. So with this, if your shoulders are really tight, it gives you a lot more space so that you can get into the pose. And a lot of us have very tight shoulders. So that is a great modification for that. So I hope that this helps you to, improve your downward facing dog, or to, approach it more confidently if you haven't before. So thank you for watching, and I'll be back with more.